Everton's promising start to the season was dealt a huge blow as they were given the highest ever points deduction in the history of the Premier League. Sean Dyche's side had started well this season, but the 10-point deduction now sees them firmly in the relegation places. Oh, the story gets worse for them because Burnley, Leeds and Leicester could reportedly sue Everton for a total of around £300 million after they were relegated last year, the latter two, instead of the Merseyside club. Those three clubs feeling aggrieved then that Burnley, of course, having been relegated the season prior, both feeling aggrieved that Everton stayed up despite this financial fair play issue. The former Arsenal chief executive David Dein was on the Sunday edition yesterday with Sean Custis and Henry Winter. He thinks this ruling is damaging for football.
I thought actually the penalty was excessive. I'd probably go as far as saying probably over the top to me for what was involved, and obviously they will appeal, and personally I hope they'll be successful. Nobody wants to see clubs go into administration. I've got a lot of sympathy for Everton, for the current owners, for the new owners who I've actually met, and I think it is damaging for football generally. One's got to differentiate between the Premier League charging and what happens after that. It's an independent tribunal. The Premier League actually have nothing whatsoever to do with the result and the decision. That's the legal guys getting...
You mean for the appeal?
For both. The Premier League do the charging, but they actually do not do the judgment. To me it seems extortionate, but there you are. And it could have a knock-on effect on other clubs, and that would be a disaster.
So that was David Dein joining talkSPORT yesterday morning. It's been reported this weekend that Manchester City could now be faced with possibility of relegation due to the fact they have 115 financial fair play charges hanging over them. Again, reports suggest that case may well be heard next year at the earliest. So joining us for more on all this is the football finance expert, Kieran Maguire. Kieran, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Kieran.
All good. Thank you very much.
David Dein there saying that the points deduction excessive and harsh. Are you in agreement with that, or was this just a case of Everton were at the test side perhaps in this situation and they had to come down hard on them?
I think everybody expected if Everton were going to be found guilty, that the most logical punishment would be a points deduction because a financial penalty doesn't work. I was taken aback by the 10 points. I think most people would have felt that 6 would have been appropriate, 6 or 7, something like that, because if you take a look at the Premier League's latest incarnation of rules, it's saying you start off with 6 and then you increase. But as this is very much a test case and the rules weren't in place when the offences took place, it does seem a harsh penalty.
But from Everton's point of view, Kieran, they've got the ban early, which gives them time to recover.
What, the points deduction?
The points deduction, sorry, not the ban. And you've got to look at it and think, right, as that penalty got them relegated. So basically, 38 points keeps you up. They've now got to get 48 points, 10 points behind. Basically, they're 10 points behind.
Saying, yeah.
So it's 165 million, is it, a year for staying in the Premier League, plus 2 years parachute payments. So probably if you get relegated, it's 350 million quid you're going to lose. They're building a new stadium. They're in absolute chaos. That 10 points now is luckily enough for Everton, and they're on such a good run that I still think they might be able to do it, but they're up against it.
Yes, I mean, there's a footballing issue, and I think the consensus amongst fans of all clubs is that Everton will survive. If you take a look at their position now, again, they're only about 3 points off the drop. With regards to the club going forwards, it's desirable but not essential that they're in the Premier League from a financial point of view next year. The funding for the stadium's a separate issue. What we've got here is financial mismanagement. There's been nothing Machiavellian in it. The club wasn't trying to deliberately break the rules. I think it was incompetence and a casual approach to the rules rather than a willingness to break them. And of course, it's the fans that suffer because we fall in love with football. not because of balance sheets, but because of what happens on the pitch. And you can understand the frustration and the anger of Everton fans.
Having been dealt this punishment, we mentioned it just before, there is now talk of 3 clubs in Burnley, Leicester and Leeds who are looking for compensation because of their relegations over the last few seasons. Do you think that is realistic? And also, again, what financial position would that put Everton in? You imagine administration would be on the cards if that was to be successful.
Well, a lot will depend upon the outcome of the settlement. Mm-hmm. There was an out-of-court settlement between Derby and Middlesbrough a couple of years ago with regards to Derby's financial issues, and Middlesbrough felt that they were disadvantaged as a result of that because they didn't make the playoffs. There was an additional case which was sort of moving forwards, and that was also being published on the Premier League's website on Friday, and that's effectively been parked until the outcome of the independent commission. And now, because Everton are appealing, I think what we will see is that will also be parked until the result of the appeal is heard, and then potentially we'll move forwards with that. Could there be a financial agreement between the clubs? Yes, and it would be better if it was negotiated. Everton will say, well, look, we actually signed a load of bad players. We probably help. When I talk to Leeds fans, for example, they say we were relegated because we were poor last season, nothing to do with Everton.
Worrying times nonetheless. Kieran, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thank you.
All sorts of ramifications, isn't
absolutely.
there? You said earlier, the players at Man City, do they take the titles off them if they get found guilty?
Well, there are lots of people on social media jokingly celebrating the fact that could happen to Manchester City. So a Liverpool or whoever it is would be celebrating the success in the sense that they might be awarded a title in response. But it's opening a can of worms, isn't it? Of what will happen next with the Manchester City case, with the Chelsea case as well. We'll do our best to bring you up to speed on it all as soon as we get all the relevant information. But as I say, the FFP charges hanging over Manchester City is, I think, 115, those breaches, not expected to be heard until next year's. That is, at the earliest, is what we're hearing.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.